Hello and welcome all to the Middle-earth In Mercia Podcast, Episode 4, An Unexpected Party. Hi everyone. I'm your host Sonny, and this is the Middle-earth In Mercia podcast. Now, it's not been much longer than usual, than our usual gap between episodes, but it probably, at the point of release, this has been a little bit longer than usual. But that is not for bad reasons. That has been because I have been very, very busy producing what I hope will be a bumper episode for you all, with lots of decent content, and I hope this is going to be our biggest and best episode yet. So quickly going over what we have in store for you today. We've had our first clink in the tip jar, so we'll be addressing that. We have some correspondence. We have the long-awaited, long-talked about review of my doubles list for Warhammer World Doubles, which will then be edited and no doubt used in some capacity for Ardacon doubles. Next up, we have something battle. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but a big chunk of the episode is something brand new, something I mentioned we might do, and I'm quite excited to see how it goes and how it's received. So look forward to that later on the episode. And we also have the biggest and most exciting update I've had since the announcement that I was intending to go to Ardacon for Ardacon in the Ardacon update. And if you can't tell by the amount of times I've said Ardacon in a 30-second snippet there, it has got me quite G'd up. If I don't sound that excited to you, that's just the kind of person I am. This is me at 11. I'm completely hyped. And I'm really looking forward to sharing that news with you. It's good news. Hopefully you'll be happy for me on this little twist in the adventure. So first things first, we have had a clink in our tip jar. So I think I have mentioned it in the past, but I don't like to bang on about it because we're not overtly looking to monetize the podcast. But if we do raise any significant funds, then the intent is to use them to buy better equipment for the podcast. I'd love to just, splash a couple of £100 on mics and an audio interface so that I could just take this to the next level. But as it's sort of, a side hobby on a hobby, I just can't really afford to do that. It's not sensible. That said, if we do raise any sort of significant funds, that is what they will go towards. If it doesn't look like that's realistic and we get to Ardacon, it will probably go on a couple of beers and I will toast those who have donated its names at the event. Now, back to the glorious individual who has dropped something in our tip jar. Thank you, Glenn, for being the first person to ever show their appreciation for the podcast in this way. I have dropped you a personal message to say thanks, but yeah, I thought I would make the effort to say it on the podcast. It wasn't required, it wasn't necessary, yet you did it anyway. And more so than the money itself, the thought that you wanted to contribute is worth £1 million to me. That you've enjoyed it to that extent. I do hope you keep listening and you continue to enjoy our content, Glenn. Thanks again. Now on to our next point on the agenda. One of my personal favourites. We have had some mail. I think it's 50% I really enjoy the engagement with people that are listening, and 50% of me just enjoys reading letters aloud. I'm not really sure why, but yeah, maybe it's a throwback to school. Anyway, straight on to it. Title Episode 3. Hi Sonny, I listened to your episode 3 today and I thought I'd send you a little note. I've really enjoyed all 3 of the episodes of your podcast. I really like your approach of newer players to the game developing armies, attending their first tournaments and ultimately going to Ardacon. I've played hundreds of games and attended a great many tournaments. Not Ardacon yet though. But I really enjoy hearing how you and your mates are building armies, painting models, learning the rules and uncovering the many facets of the game. I know that Chris stepping back a little has come as a shock, and was happy to hear that you've decided to continue with the podcast and make your way to Ardacon regardless. Good on him for doing this now and giving you time to adjust, and not waiting until the last minute. Things often don't proceed on the path that we envisioned, but I am confident that your journey will still bring you and your listeners a great deal of enjoyment. Now that your plan has been turned on its head, it just adds another interesting element to your adventure. Kind of like Frodo finding out that he wouldn't be able to stay at Crico Hollow and would have to leave the very next day. It's dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door, he used to say. You step into the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. Do you realise that this is the very path that goes through Mirkwood, and that if you let it, it might take you to the Lonely Mountain, or even to Ardacon? All the best, and keep up the good work on the podcast. Don. Now, I obviously have read this a few days ago. I saw it drop in. And yeah, first off, what a lovely email. Thank you so much, Don. Really kind words. I certainly enjoy a slight twist on a Lord of the Rings quote. I'm a big fan of that, and very apt, and nicely done. Very kind words. And yeah, it was a bit of a shocker getting the news from Chris. But yeah, you are right on the positives. It gives me time to plan and make my next move. And I do have a bit of an update on that later, but I'm going to keep teasing that, no doubt. But I'm going to save it for later. But yeah, thank you very much again, Don. But yeah, one thing I did want to point out, I got to the end of it. I was thinking my thoughts I've just expressed there, and then I saw the address, and it's Don of North of the Shire Podcast, and if you don't know that, it's a few very nice Canadian fellows that run their own podcast talking about the Middle-earth strategy battle game, and the reason why I say pleasantly surprised, because I was only listening to it a few days before. Don's got I think he said it was his first solo episode, and he's talking about battle companies, sort of, the ups and downs, and also that on the net there's these community driven rules that he's trying out, and he gets very inventive on creating some audio tracks to go along with his campaign. I get the feeling that Don would be an excellent person to run your battle company's campaign for you. So go and check them out. Very nice guys, very experienced in the game, and I always think it's nice. I said to Don how this little game of ours, it can connect people across the world and help you make new friends. And it's just a common point of reference for us all that I think makes it that little bit easier to reach out and be friendly. And when I got this, as I will explain later in the Ardacon update, I hadn't received the good news yet, and this was certainly a morale booster. So thank you very much, Don. I really appreciate it. I've tempted you for a long time. I've spoken about it in hushed whispers, but I finally sat down and put together my army list for the Warhammer World Doubles. And I have recently realised that for Ardacon Doubles it's actually 350 points each. So this list is only really good for the Warhammer World Doubles, where it is 400 apiece. But I will probably just be doing some slight alterations. So I can't take all the credit for this. I have consulted with Chris on the army list, but I'm not going to lie, it is a bit of my brainchild. So I guess 80% of the success or failure of the list, or whatever you think of the list, probably falls on my head. But yeah, let's. This is our first proper army list review, so let's just dive right into it. So in my half of the army, we have let's start from the top first, actually. So 400 points on the dot, 11 bows, 23 warriors. I can't remember the way that, because I'm using Battlescribe, which I highly recommend if you don't use. Output format isn't always the best, but I find it's the easiest way I've found recently of just knocking up army lists. It is then quite helpful to put it in, a more simplified format written out. But if you want to quickly put an army together and make sure it's compliant, I find it's generally pretty good. Anyway, 400 points, 11 bows, 23 warriors. That's possibly... So yeah, the 23 warriors thing, isn't the total for the warband, including heroes, is 25. So 400 points, 11 bows, 25 models, meaning that it has a break point of 13, which I think is not bad for this this points level. So Warband 1, Suladan, the Serpent Lord. He is my leader. I have chosen to give him a horse. If you don't know Suladan, then he's a pretty affordably costed. I would say maybe not top tier hero, but he's definitely upper mid tier in my books. He's got Ascendant passive, which I believe, his standfast is 12 inches rather than 6 inches. He has the Serpent Banner on his back. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, is a 6-inch banner. And I've chosen the horse, the armored horse, which is 15 points. So that takes him to a total of 115 points. He has, with the horse, he has 10 movement, fight skill 5, which is pretty good, not amazing, but pretty good. 4+ to hit, strength 4, defense 5, which is, I wish that was a little bit higher, but it is what it is. 3 attacks, 3 wounds, courage 5, 3 might, 3 will, 1 fate, and heroic actions. He's got resolve, march, strike, and challenge, which, I think as long as you've got might on him, and ideally if he's still on his horse, he is a pretty potent machine. I think he can struggle a bit when you're looking at defense 7 or higher, because he doesn't have a lance and he's strength 4. He also doesn't have strength if you really wanted to use that, but that's not my favourite way to be using might. But sometimes I have found that he lacks a little bit in killing power, but as a leader with that 12-inch standfast, with that 6-inch banner, I think he's pretty damn good. And you can, on that horse, if you can zoom in there at key moments and, with his strike, take down a weakened hero, a weakened leader, pretty good. I really like Suladan as a leader. I do wish that he had defense 6. I kind of feel like the king of the Haradrim would probably, be looking at maybe getting himself a wicker shield or some heavy armor. I mean, he's got an immense banner strapped to his back, so I don't think the guy's too fussed with practicality. I think he could make heavy armor work. But the thing I would take above all of that is I don't know why he can't have a lance. Charge him 5 points for a lance. That seems fair. All his Serpent Riders get lances. All his Raiders can have lances. Half the army has spears that are actually lances. It doesn't make sense to me that Suladan can't have a lance. The others are probably just my wishful thinking, having higher defense, maybe having some more fate, maybe being fight skill 6. Those are probably my wish list, but it really doesn't make sense to me that he can't have a lance. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Suladan, good hero as a leader in my opinion. You don't want him going toe to toe with someone like Gil-galad unless Gil-galad's spent quite a bit of his might. But I think Suladan is a very good, solid leader. So in his warband, we have 2 Haradrim Raiders, and I have given them war spears. We then have 6 Haradrim Warriors with spear and warbow. And then we have... Oh, wait, is that a warbow or is it just bow? No, they're just bow. I'm just adding war onto it. So, bow and spear. 2 Serpent Riders. So, 4 cavalry, 6 infantry with bow and spear. I really like this warband. It's got some real hitting power. If you get a scenario where you're drawn out in the middle, I quite like and have done in practice games, lining up those Haradrim as sort of a gun line. If they choose to back away from you, you just keep firing. If they don't choose to back away from you, then you've got a bit of a blocker, a buffer, and then you can come around with the cavalry. I really like that warband. It's done really well for me. Having those 4 lances plus Suladan, you can just, especially with him having heroic march, I did this in a game the other day, you can just zip to the other side of the board, and with that 6-inch banner, somebody can think you didn't have a banner in this fight, and then boom, Suladan turns up from 21 inches away, which is the 15 for the march plus the 6 for the range, and suddenly in important combat they thought there was a banner nowhere near. You've suddenly got it in there, and and if you're keeping the raiders and the serpent riders with him as well, that's a nice mobile attack force. So I really enjoy the way this little warband works, but it is a close run thing as to which warband is my favourite. Because moving on to warband 2, it is led by Haradim King, who is movement 6, fight skill 5, 4+ to hit, strength 4, defense 5, attack 2, wounds 2, courage 5, might 2, will 2, fate 1, and the heroic actions he has is march and strength. So yeah, the Haradim King is a bit like a underpowered Suladan, really. The only thing I don't really like about the Haradim King is that he doesn't get strike. I really wish he did. That would be. I think it would be a great, well-costed hero at that point. At that points level. I mean, I guess he does have fight skill 5, like most kings. But yeah, I do really wish he had strike. When I'm going through the heroes, it is in the Haradim list. It is obviously a bit of a glass cannon list. It's very much get into the enemy and kill them before they kill you, unless you go for an enormous amount of bows and just try and turn your enemy into a porcupine. That's the way I've been playing it, is close with the enemy in a place you want to close with them, a point of your choosing, and unleash. Do not get into a protracted thing. Find a limb that the enemy has outstretched a little bit too far and cut that off. Deal with that quickly, and then move on to the rump of the force, which hopefully at that point you've got a significant numbers advantage. And I do think in a list like that there should be a few more options for strike that aren't, ultimate glass cannons within a glass cannon list. And I think if the Haradim King had strike, I would have no complaints on that, because I think the Haradim King, other than that, is a really good option. Anyway, the Haradim King, I have chosen a horse, and I've given him the war spear. So yeah, I think he is a pretty good sort of throwaway hero. I'm primarily using him for doing those heroic movements. And ideally, if somebody's going to have to call the heroic march, I would prefer it to be the Haradim King, because he doesn't have the strike. I really like him, of just marching around on his horse, getting him to kill elites, those fight skill 4 models with the lance and the strength 4. He's really laying into people if he's getting the charge off. I really like him. He's more than capable of killing sort of captain level heroes. Anybody that's fight skill 4 and doesn't have strike is going down basically while he's still on a horse. I really like him. And yeah, maybe I spoke a little bit too harshly. He is only 75 points on a horse with a lance. But yeah, on my wish list, strike for him. Anyway, the rest of his warband: 6 Ardacon Merchant Guard, 5 Haradim Warriors with bows and spear, and 2 Watchers of Kana with twin blade. Now, this warband in my practice games has been doing an unbelievable amount of work for me. Considering that, so the split is that this warband is 187 points and the other warband is 213 points. They do, and the fact that they've got much less mobility, they've been doing an incredible amount of work for me. I like to, when he's available, get Suladan in there, get that banner for the rerolls on the Ardacon Merchant Guard. And if they're fighting fight skill 4 or 3, they just do really, really well. And I've had a couple of games in my practice games against elves. If those elves fail to get the 6s, then the killing ability of the Merchant Guard starts to more than make up for the fact that they are outclassed in their fight skill. I have just found them, for a 9-point model with strength 4 and burly, so on a defense 6 opponent, he's chopping them down on 4s. That is incredible. You get a couple of traps down and you really start chopping through them. I don't know. Maybe I have got a bit of... maybe I'm a bit G'd up from my recent games. I did have a game against some Thranduil's elves where, there was definitely elements of luck. They had a banner, I had a banner, It was sort of 5 of my merchant guard were closing off this passage. They were fighting 2 elves apiece up front, so it was 2-on-2. We both had banners, and the elves just failed to get those 6s. And there was one turn where every single merchant guard killed the elf in front of them. And yeah, that just absolutely sold those models to me. I know they are vulnerable, but in my mind, with that defense 4, I was really thinking these guys are going to go down like anything. Like they're going to go down to bowfire. They're going to go down as soon as they lose fights. And I think that's true if you're facing crossbows and you're facing uruks. Anything with strength 4, you are going to be wounded on 4s. But what I perhaps didn't appreciate because I haven't really played many models that are defense 4 or less in the past. What I didn't appreciate is, on the wounds chart, if it's a 2 or a 3 coming at you, they need 5 still. They need 5s. And at 9 points, I think they are a really, really good option for the army. I tend to just sort of keep them behind my normal Harridan warriors because I think they're about 7 or 8 points a pop. They're slightly cheaper for sure. Depending on their loadout, just keep them stood behind them, so you've got an in the way. And I've barely lost any in my practice games to bows. That's not really been a problem as long as I've been watching my positioning. If the rolls do start to go against you, you are quite vulnerable, and heroes especially do really chop through them. But then you've got someone like the Harridan King, who, he is 75 points. But if I've already spent his might getting the heroic movements to get where I want to be, if I've already done some killing, got some points back on him, I find the Harridan King is quite a good lure for those kind of heroes who would otherwise be chopping through my Ardacon merchant guard. I think it's quite easy to look at their profile and be like, oh, my infantry are just going to be able to chop through them. They're not even wearing armor. These guys are just carrying a bit of weight on them, and that's their protection. And then they just chop straight through you. Yeah, so this is my half of the army. I've been playing this a lot, to be honest. I'm not sure how many games I've actually had with this. I don't think it's too much of a boast that I have won all my games when playing this because I'm playing against my friends who are all learning the game, basically. I need to have a good practice game with this list against Chris, and that will be more of a challenge. But I'm not putting too much weight into the fact I haven't lost yet. I'm more putting weight into individual circumstances of specific performances I've seen on the battlefield and seeing what things have gone well, what things have not gone well. One of my concerns with this is that I'm obviously investing in 11 bows. Which I think when you've got 25 warriors is pretty good. But the bows just have not been performing as I'd hoped. There was one bit of luck where I've taken out a couple of elves who had shields, rolled double 6s in the battle report. That was really good, but it was just luck really. And getting those rerolls on the 1s, I don't know. I was expecting to see more out of them. I guess once I get out into the wider world and I'm playing other armies and there's more lightly armoured ones, maybe I'll see an improvement from them. But that's my main concern. Maybe you might think, oh, Sonny, this is only one half of your doubles list. But I've looked at the double scenarios that we're going to be playing at Warhammer World, which is the first tournament I've got up in front of me. And I think it's a good... there's only 6 scenarios. So you can really, really tailor your list to the scenarios. It's not like the standard version of the game where there's up to 12. Depending on what tournament you're at, there can be up to 12 scenarios. It's quite hard to plan for the possibility of 12 scenarios. You just have to sort of keep them in your peripheral vision. But when you've only got 6 and you're playing 6 games across a tournament, you can plan that out. You can plan out that in 4 of those 6 games, I want to have a significant advantage unless my opponent has gone for a specific counter. And in 3 of those, you start separate from your ally. And that's why I've really tried to look at the lists as almost, individual armies rather than 2 halves. They do complement each other, which I think you will see when I go into Chris's list, which I am just bringing up now. They do complement each other, but they work well separately, at least in my eyes. And that's really something I've tried to focus on when we're doing these lists. Anyway, I've been rambling away for quite some time. Let's dive into Chris's list. So, Chris's list, 19 models, so a few less models. 400 points on the dot again. 10 bows. Okay, Warband 1. The Betrayer on horse. So the Betrayer is movement 10 with the horse, or 6 as standard. Fight skill 5. Hits on 4+. Strength 4. Defense 8. Attack 1. Wounds 1. Courage 6. Might 2. Will 14. Fate 2. And heroic actions channeling. So I'm not going to go into all the ring wraiths, but obviously you've got the standard ring wraiths, and then you've got these named versions of them that have a bit more backstory and a bit more character to how they play. The Betrayer is not a combat ring wraith, really. He doesn't have strike. He's got 1 attack. That's not really what you want him for. You want him for the traditional ring wraith spells. So you've got transfix, instill fear, drain courage, compel, and he does have black dart, but it's on a 6+, so I can't imagine we'll be doing. But yeah, what the Betrayer has, which is particularly good and unique to him, is he does have Bane of Kings, which useful, not useful, because he doesn't have many attacks, and he's fight skill 5. You're not gonna, and with no strike, you're not going to be wanting to throw him into anything particularly powerful. He's got the Harbinger of Evil, which is the -1 to courage. That is also good, but what he's got that's really good is Master of Poisons, which let's just dart over to Master of Poisons, which is at the start of the move phase, before heroic actions are declared, the Betrayer may spend a will point to activate this ability. Until the end of the turn, friendly models with poisoned weapons, special rule, within 6 of the Betrayer may re-roll all failed to wound rolls made with these weapons. And when you combine that with the fact that we're playing all Serpent Horde, and effectively every weapon in the army has the poisoned ability, that means you can get full rerolls to wound for everything within 6 of it. So that is probably going to inform a little bit for you why we've made some other selections. So what we then have in his warband is 3 Haradim Raiders with War Spear, 3 Lances effectively, a Haradim Raider with a banner, and then we have 2 Haradim Raiders with bow and war spear, followed up by 2 Serpent Riders. So what is that? That's 3, 4, 6, 8 cavalry in that warband, 7 of which have war spears. Those pretty potent lances. So you can see what we're doing there. 7 lances going in with full re-rolls to wound, supported by a banner. If they win that fight and they're getting in an ideal way, 2 apiece, winning those fights, particularly when you've got 2 Serpent Riders, which does give us the option of some fight skill 4 for those non-elf armies. I think that could be really, really good. Even on a duff approach, not ideal, should still be doing some wounds. So yeah, I like that warband a lot, pretty potent. Then moving on to Warband 2. This is something I've been playing with since Tom wrote in and he mentioned Raza. So this is, I need to talk to Chris about whether one of us is actually willing to buy Raza. I quite like the model, so I might buy him from Forge World and then Chris could use him. So what I've put in this warband is, so it's firstly 8 bow, 9 warriors. Is Raza, Fang of the Serpent, who has Bane of Kings, which is, we haven't been through Bane of Kings. So Bane of Kings, this model must re-roll all failed to wound rolls when making strikes in close combat. So yeah, pretty good because this guy is a combat orientated hero. He is fight skill 4, strength 4, defense 5, attacks 3, wounds 2, courage 5, might 3, will 1, fate 1, strike and challenge. And so yeah, that adds in a second hero to the army who can do strike, which I think is pretty important. And also Raza has Swarm Protector for Suladan. Models with this special rule will have a specific model in brackets Suladan. Whilst this model is alive on the battlefield, he passes all courage tests. Yeah, the Serpent's Weapon is also Raza's special rule. At the start of the game, secretly select one hero model in your opponent's force to be Raza's target and write it down. At the start of the fight where Raza is engaged with target, you should then reveal this to your opponent. whereas his fight is increased by 2 for the duration of that fight. So that takes him up to 6, which for a 75-point model. So he's the same as the king on horse. They offer different things. I don't know. It's hard, but I think that points, because it is rules that apply all the time. I've found in competitive. I'm not talking about Lord of the Rings here because I don't have the experience, but in other game systems, rules that apply all the time, so rerolls and things like that, are generally a lot more powerful than these sort of specific scenarios. But yeah, so it's hard to cost them out. But he does have 3 points of might. He does have 3 attacks, and he's got strike, and I like all of those things. And he's not too glass cannony, really. Yeah, he does only have 2 wounds, defense 5, and fate 1. But with those 3 attacks, yeah, I like his odds, and with the strike if you need it. Anyway, in his warband, we've got 8 Harridan warriors with spear and bow, and then 1 Harridan warrior with spear, who, I just couldn't afford another bow. So as you can see there, both forces have a contingent of infantry. The infantry, admittedly, in Chris's half is far less potent than in the other half. It's more so that if one of us is the primary in those double scenarios, that we can, if need be, we can just sacrifice a load of cheap warriors. I mean, what's this? Harridan warriors, for 8 of them is 64 points. So yeah, you can probably get 2 of them out there. Sacrifice 6. Yeah, it is 50 points. But if the entire rest of the force can run off, join up with me, and go with that strategy of destroying an entire segment or 50% of their force, I think that is really how we're going to be trying to play things. Divide and conquer. The only thing that really particularly worries me is a very, very potent gun line that's going to force us to close and engage very, very quickly, and maybe not at a place of our choosing. I'm thinking if we come up against Corsairs and they have a huge amount of crossbows, depending on the terrain, we're not going to have a lot of options other than to close with them very quickly, because we're just going to be picked apart with most of the army being strength 4. I wouldn't, well, in an ideal world, I wouldn't want to face even 1 turn of shooting from that, but 2, 3 turns of shooting from that, there's not going to be too many of us left at the end of that if they roll well. But yeah, I really like what we've got going on at the moment. Like I say, I need to. Raza is sort of a bit up in the air, but this is my work in progress list for the 2 halves of us. We have a lot of cavalry, a lot of mobility, and a lot of bows. And I like the idea of that if we do come up against another lightly armoured force, we should have enough bows and enough rerolls that we can force them to come to us a rather compromising way, and then we can possibly envelop them with cavalry. We've got a significant amount of cavalry that even if we come up against very high quality cavalry, we've got enough that we can pin them down, reduce their mobility, and then close with our infantry. We've got tricks available with Treya and his usual ringwraith stuff. Yeah, I really, really, really like this. I feel pretty confident about it, that it should be able to perform. But it entirely depends on what we sit down across at the table, really, and the skill of those players. I am doing as much practice as I feasibly can with this. But yeah, none of it's really going to be a replacement for tournament experience. So we're going to have to see how we go. But yeah, hopefully I have gone on quite a bit here, but I'm quite passionate about this list and have spent a lot of time thinking about it. So hopefully I have been able to sort of convey my methodology behind it and what I'm thinking we may be able to do. If you could write in or message me on Facebook, let me know what you think. What list do you think I'm going to struggle with? Do you think there's something I've overlooked? Is there something in the Serpent Horns list that and I am going to caveat this. We don't want to do a mimic another time for sure. But no, with this list, we want infantry and cavalry really, and we want to do pure Serpent's Horde. So those are my 2 caveats. But yeah, outside of that, is there something in the list I've overlooked? Do you think there's a massive error I'm making here? Are there better options to do the kind of strategy I've spoken about? Do you think one half is better balanced than the other? Should we shift things around a bit? Just if you've got some thoughts on this, let me know. I'd be really interested to see what you think. yeah, good and bad. Now, I've already told you that we've got some good news coming, but it's not come quite yet. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that Ardacon update that I'm excited to share with you all. But along with that, to, just sort of reward the listeners with content, really. This is obviously going to be, at my count anyway, so far, at this stage in the production, this is going to be probably our longest episode ever. I've included our first ever proper army list review, so I wanted to do another first for you. And we've sort of squeezed this in, and it sort of snuck up on me as well. I was surprised when the evening came round and we were able to make it happen. We have done our first ever audio battle report, and it's gone quite well. So I'm going to hand you back over to my past self, who's going to take you through the army lists and the build-up. And I hope he enjoyed it as much as I did. Hello, and I'm coming to you live from the recent past. So first up, we're going to take you through the participants of the battle report and the army list. So today we have Tom, who you've heard about, but I have yet to do his introduction. We will get that done at some point. He is going to be playing his Rivendell army, led by Gil-galad. He is today allied with Ash, who you're familiar with, who is once again playing his Rohirrim. This is a doubles battle, so they are united on one side as the forces of good. Ash, as his leader, has the mighty King Theoden, who has today either used his time machine to go and collect Gil-galad or has gone back to his age. I'll let you, the listener, decide how that's worked out. And they are up against myself, and I am playing my Ardacon Doubles 400 list, so I won't take you through that as you've already heard it. And they are today allied with Force of Mordor, led by Gothmog. So I'm going to take you through those lists. Now, as I've already said, you've heard earlier the full breakdown of my doubles list for the Warhammer World Doubles. So I'm literally just playing my 400 points from the list I took you through earlier, led by Suladan, who is my leader. And then Alex's force, which is a little force I put together for him because it was slightly before he had assembled his Halls of Thranduil, and also we wanted to do good versus evil. He has Gothmog, Lieutenant of Sauron, and he is leading 15 warriors. They are 7 Morannon Orcs with shield and spear, 7 Morannon Orcs with shield and sword, and 1 Morannon Orc with a banner. And that makes up Warband 1. And in Warband 2, he has Gorbag Orc Captain, and he is leading 6 Morannon Orcs with spear and shield. I'm not going to take you entirely through each of those heroes, but Gothmog has a very neat ability, Master of Battle, where he's able to he's like a mimic. He can replicate heroic actions for free if they're done within a certain distance. He's also got March Strike. He's got 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 3 might. He's a pretty decent leader. And then Gorbag is basically a named orc captain who has 3 points of might and strike. So yeah, just with this list, I was trying to create something for Alex that would play similar to the Halls of Thranduil. Not quite, because obviously they've got much lower fight skill, and they do have higher strength. But when they're around Thranduil, they get +1 to wounds. They've got defense 6 typically, and they've got a central hero that sort of buffs them, and you want to be in a little bit of a ball. So I thought that would, on a strategic level rather than a tactics level, probably play quite similar. So that's what I was trying to do for Alex. Now going through Tom's list, nice and simple. He's got Gil-galad with shield, 175 points, big chunk of his 400 there. He then has 7 Kingsguard with shields, who are, the upgraded elves, Gil-galad's bodyguard, who have a natural fight 6 constantly. 4 elven warriors with shield, and then 6 elven warriors with bows and spears. So just basically very high fight skill across the board. Gil-galad, who is an absolute beast, and then those ultra elves who, when you look at the evil list, that pip of fight skill's not really going to come into it. But yeah, there you go. So that's Tom's list. Now going through Ash's list, and I am definitely going to have to show him how to use Battle Scribe properly, because he has not condensed any of this, so I'm not going to be able to read through all of this very well, because everything is an individual entry. But he has Theoden King on an armoured horse with heavy armour, who is his leader. He then has a warband of 12, which is basically just an assortment of riders of Rohan. There's lots of shields, there's lots of bows, there's the occasional throwing spear in there, but yeah, 12 of them. And then in the second warband, he has a captain of Rohan with armour, axe, shield and sword. He has 6 warriors of Rohan, again with assorted shields, swords, throwing spears, no bows this time round. But yeah, so that total makes up 20 models and comes in at 399 points. It was a bit of a byproduct of the fact that we sort of quickly realised that we had time to do this, but they are obviously playing in a red alliance. So they didn't actually get their army bonuses, but we didn't play them as a red alliance. We did it as a yellow alliance, so that they didn't really take any penalisation for that. But Rohan still gets the bonuses of Arise Riders of Theoden. If this model is within 12 inches of Theoden, has the cavalry keyword, then a model armed. A model with this special rule receives +1 bonus to their fight value on the turn in which they charge, which, considering that I've got Harad elites that are on fight skill 4, I'm sure that will come into importance during the game. Now, we rolled a short time ago, and as I spoke about earlier when we were doing the army list review, in your typical doubles tournament, there's 6 scenarios. So we've rolled randomly to see which scenario we would get, and it's one of those that I've discussed before, where you're actually separated from your ally, and it's called no escape. So in this scenario, essentially, if you've got 2 board edges that are on opposing ends, opposite, one good, one bad, your primary teammate has to start slightly towards the opponent's board, and then the primary enemy has to start slightly behind there towards your board edge. So you essentially get the 2 primaries of Team A and Team B, as it's listed here, starting in the middle in a 6-inch strip anywhere along that, and then the second half of your forces start on your board edge within 6 of the edge. So you're very separated, and this scenario really sort of favours somebody with high mobility who can perhaps unite their forces quickly, and then decide where they want to fight against at least one half of their opponents very rapidly. So yeah, I mean, at first glance, I'm a little bit worried because we've got Rohan in this force who have got 13 cavalry models, which is more than double the amount I've got in my Harad list. So we're going to have to see who starts where. So yeah, I've already described the deployment and starting positions to you. Standard priority rules, and the objectives are: the game lasts until the end of a turn in which one force has been reduced to a quarter, at 25% of its starting number of models or below that, at which point the team that has scored the most victory points wins the game. If both teams have the same number of victory points, the game is a draw. Scoring victory points: you score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds on an enemy leader. Wounds prevented by a successful fate roll do not count. If you kill the enemy leader, you instead score 3 victory points. You score 3 victory points if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and your force is unbroken, you instead score 5 victory points. You score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 banner remaining at the end of the game. If you have at least 1 banner and your opponent has none remaining, then you instead score 2 victory points. You score 2 victory points if you kill the leader of the secondary force. So there you have it. That's the setup for our first ever battle report. I'm sort of going to be passing around the mic. I've got 2 mics. They're not really designed for being passed around. I'm going to have one pinned to me. I'm going to be sort of passing it around the room and trying to pick up those important moments. I think it's going to be a little bit hectic because there are 4 of us. I guess out of the 2 options, it's better if we're probably not hearing from everybody enough than we're hearing from everybody too much. But we're going to see how it goes. We're going to give it our best crack. I'm sure it'll be fun. I'm sure we'll learn a lot of things from it. So yeah, let's head into the battle zone.
So we've got everybody here. Myself, Sonny, obviously. I am playing my Ardacon /Doubles Harad list. We've got a couple of new people to introduce. We've got Alex. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
He is playing a Mordor list, mostly made up of Morannons. And we've got Ash, who you've met before.
Alright, guys.
He is playing a host of Rohirrim, which is mainly cavalry. And then we've got another new face, which is Tom.
Hello, everyone.
And Tom is playing his Rivendell army, which we've discussed about before. So the deployment has just been laid out. We've had Tom and Ash, who are on one side designated as the primary. Ash has been the primary of the primary and is deployed in the centre with his Rohirrim. I have then been the primary of mine and have deployed with my Haradim in the centre. And then we've got Tom up behind with his elves, and Alex in the rear of the Rohirrim with his Morannons. So there's already been some significant events in the deployment. So we're going to go over to Ash because I think he's sort of regretting his initial deployment. Ash, tell us how your deployment has gone.
Pretty terribly, to be fair. I've decided to cram them all between some ruins and a wall. And they've got some nice fat boys in front of me, ready to chop me up if we don't win that first deployment.
It's certainly restricted your movement there. You're very much in a bit of a corridor. So why don't you hand over to Tom there and we'll see what his response is perhaps going to be. What are you intended to do, Tom?
I'm just going to move up and fight, I think. The main thing is to get towards the centre of the board and get into combat as soon as possible. I think it's just going to be a big melee in the middle of the board, so being on the good side, my archers are not going to be particularly reliable if all of your infantry are in combats or cavalry are in combat. So yeah, best thing for me is to just get up the board.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. And then Alex, this is obviously one of your first ever games, really. I think you're still in single digits. What are you thinking? Well,
I think, I've got to get into combat as soon as I can. I do actually lack archers in my force, so being able to engage in the first turn is probably going to be quite difficult, considering the distance I've got to the Rohirrim army.
Yeah, you're about 12 inches away. I think this first turn is very much going to hinge on who gets priority. So why don't we do that roll now? Tom and Ash, which one of you is going to do the roll?
Go on, Tom. You can do it and I'll commentate.
Tom's picking up the dice.
5 off the bat.
5. Where's our dice? It's custom dice. Will they do me right? All right. It's a 4, so we're almost certainly going to be doing heroic moves.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to check back in when things have progressed a bit more. I imagine after the first turn, if anything significant happens, like hero and hero, someone's possibly going to go down. We're coming for those rolls. But yeah, not much more to report until after turn 1. All right, we are back. It's the top of turn 3. We've just rolled for priority and evil has finally taken our first priority. We didn't stop at the end of turn 1 because not a lot happened really. As we mentioned, Ash was a bit penned in. His first deployment hadn't gone quite well and it looked like he was going to be funneled into some Harad elites. So he's then sort of, if we will call the good side of the board north, he's sort of swung round to the west to try and rescue his infantry. Good has then won priority 2 times in a row. There's been 2 heroic roll-offs to see who gets the movement. Good won the first one, which allowed them to extract themselves over to the west and the rest of their infantry. But then Evil has won the second with a heroic move from Gorbag, and the Morannons have been able to come in and pen the Rohirrim in, and then the Haradim have met them on the other side. It was fairly bloodless the first turn. There was 1 or 2 fights, but then it's been pretty brutal in turn 2, and there is a lot of dead Rohirrim horsemen. Tom decided to hang back in turn 1 and delivered some bow fire, picked off a couple of Haradim, but then in a stunning move, the Haradim managed to get double 6s and took out 2 elves with spear and shield. So we're going to go over to Ash now. Ash, how do you think the game's going? What are you thinking about for your next move?
From my side, it's pretty terrible. Most of my guys have gone, so going to try and escape a bit more, and hopefully the elves will do the elven thing and come at the last minute. But yeah, so I don't think it's looking very blue sky for me at the minute.
I think you've had some harsh lessons there, haven't you? In terms of you had your Rohirrim in a ball, but you were in quite an enclosed area when you were looking at jump tests. I think if you had flipped where your infantry were and where your cavalry were, it would have been a perfect deployment. That's just unfortunate. And then you haven't suffered as badly for it, but I think Tom holding back has been a little bit of a downer for you as well. So why don't you hand over to Tom and see what he's got to say, what he's thinking.
So I don't think me hanging back has made any difference, because I'm still quite a distance from the fight. Even if I had another 6 inches, I'm still not in combat. So maybe it's a turn later. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
And then Alex, it's been fairly bloodless for you on both sides. You've been quite important in terms of positioning. But I think, am I correct in saying it's 1 kill for you and 1 loss for you?
Correct, yeah. I lost a troop to a thrown spear in turn 1, and then we moved our troops in and tried to encircle the Rohirrim horses and the infantry. Didn't actually win too many fights in that battle. It was mainly the Haradim, I believe, who took many horse.
Yeah, the fat boys have done their job in chopping. Suladan has been a bit of a disappointment though. He spent 2 might so far and killed 1 Rohirrim. He had a heroic combat that just didn't come off last turn, and then I probably rather unwisely wasted a point of might to win a combat to finally get a kill. But yeah, it's sort of looking, if I go back to that template we were talking about earlier, where the good side of the board is north, the Rohirrim have a way out to the west. They probably need to take it. They have lost about half of their cavalry. Is that right, Ash?
Yeah, about half.
Yeah, so they're not spent, but they have spent a lot of their strength. But there are a heck of a lot of elves left, and there's Gil-galad over there. So we're going to check back in when something important happens, or maybe in another 2 turns. At the moment, it's looking quite bleak for the Rohirrim. The elves are on the way, but they are at least 2 turns. All right, so we're in turn 3 right now. We've had a heroic move off and a roll off, which Ash has unfortunately lost. Right now, his Rohirrim are being absolutely bundled. Gorbag has jumped on Theoden and is preparing to do a heroic strike. How are you feeling, Ash?
Ready for bed. I think it's time to go home.
I mean, this isn't great for you, obviously, but I think you've got to remember that you are playing a team game, and the elves are over there, and every model you manage to knock out here is another one that the elves don't have to fight. That's still nearly 400 points stacked over there, completely untouched. Theoden could potentially win this heroic strike off. So when we get to that, we're going to drop back in. So a minor mistake a moment ago. We didn't realise that obviously we've won priority. So as we managed to charge Theoden, they've not actually been able to do the heroic move, meaning we've been able to absolutely pile in on the Rohirrim. It's really going to rely on whether Theoden wins this heroic strike off when it comes. Tom's preparing to move up with all his elves though. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. He's got sort of 2 decisions here. So we're coming to you live from the death of Theoden. He's just lost the heroic strike. We're about to roll wounds on him. He's trapped. I've got a merchant guard about to roll strikes on him. Because he's defense 7, strength 4, -1 for 2-handed. I need 5s. No wounds, but I've got a 1, so I'll re-roll the Merchant Guard wound. Nope. So he's gotten away with that. Then my king, he's strength 4, he's got a lance and he charged, so that means I need 5s with him. That is 4 wounds with the king. Do you want to see how many you get with Gorebag? No wounds on that. You roll him again though because he's trapped. No wounds there, but I think Theoden only has 1 fate, doesn't he? So I don't think you can survive that. That is unfortunate. Theoden have turned 5. Good have just 1 priority. Evil have allowed them to take it without doing a heroic move. The elves are finally going to make it to the evil lines in significant numbers. They look like they're about to prepare to charge the Haradim. They don't really look like they've got access to any of the important heroes. Gothmog is quite far back. Gorebag is sort of mid-pack but shielded. And Suladan is very far away. It's going to be interesting to see how this transpires, but it's mostly going to come down just to the dice roll because of the high fight skill of the elves. Ash did manage to make it out with 3 Rohirrim. Ash, have you finished crying?
Almost. I'm going to cry on the way home in the car.
And what's the situation with these ruins? Could you just jump through the ruins, or...?
I think you can travel over them unimpeded, and you can stand on those steps and stuff, but you can't wind up on those pillars.
I have to be an inch from him, don't I? If I don't want
Yeah, if you're not charging him, you have to remain an inch away.
This guy's going to charge this guy, and he's going to throw a spear at him.
So it's the start of turn 6. Good have just 1 priority. The elves are slugging away in the corridor we described at the beginning of the game. There are 4 Rohirrim left, 3 on horses. The game is starting to wind down now. Unless the elves start to really deliver some kills, it is looking like an evil victory. Okay, it's the end of the game. Tom has had to jet off. We haven't totaled up the victory points, but Good Force was broken. Theoden, who was the leader, was dead. Evil wasn't broken. Both sides still had banners, but yeah, that's off the top of my head. That's something like a 7-point victory, I believe, to the evil force, because they broke the other force and weren't broken and had killed the enemy leader. Something in those regions. But I think really the game was kind of decided, unfortunately, in the first couple of turns. So Ash, rather than me taking through, what do you think went wrong for you and Tom?
So I think deployment was a big part of it. I think deploying the riders in the formation that I did and in the position I didn't help us. I think as well, look at the dice. If Tom was the primary, then Tom could have been in the middle of the fight and the cavalry could have managed to move into the evil forces a lot sooner than Tom's elves could have done. It took them a good couple of turns to walk across the board, which would have been a great support. At one point it was just 400 points versus the whole of the evil army, and they just got engulfed. So yeah, and one big learning point is to make sure that I'm leaving space so that people can fall back from combat and they're not getting caught up. And that was a big blow because people were getting caught up, and it just increases the amount of strikes that you guys can dish out on me, increasing the risk of getting those wounds against the guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be fair to you, this was your first proper game where you had significant amounts of cavalry, didn't you? And I think it probably demonstrated quite well the differences between doing the infantry and the cavalry, because the infantry, for instance, like we said, being in that bottleneck, it would have been a great position because it stops you getting flanked, it restricts movement. But with the cavalry, it's the opposite. You've got those large bases, which means it limits the amount of troops you can get to the front, and it really limits your movement. So yeah, I think you're always going to have a bit of a learning curve on that. So I wouldn't beat yourself up on it, but yeah, definitely something to learn from.
Yeah, for sure. And it was the first time using a proper Rohan list. I think I did well remembering some of the special rules that I had available to me, and I can go away and build my list, a stronger list from that, knowing what sort of things I need to start incorporating into the army. Yeah,
the few times you did get those charges off, you did see how brutal that was when you had the fight skill 4 from Theoden, when you got the knockdown. when you got the extra attack. You were killing when you got the charges, but yeah, you just unfortunately didn't get them enough. But I think we're going to hand over to the man that restricted you getting those charges quite a lot. So, Alex, I know I was obviously leading you through quite a bit here, but you had a pretty faultless game. So Alex had, I think it was 22 Morannon Orcs, including Gothmog in his force. And he only, no, actually, I think it was 24. And he only lost 3 troops and did a good half of the killing in that game. So, Alex, why don't you give us your thoughts? What did you think?
Yeah, so I think I spent a lot of time supporting the big Harad fighters with my spearmen, and just trying to tie up as many men as possible. And the fact that a lot of my troops had defense 6 meant that they were quite difficult to kill, and it just kept them encircled throughout the battle.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, like playing with me here, I mean, I'm no expert, but taught you a little bit more about the strategy and like the importance of, you know, making sure you're the one getting off the traps, the importance of making sure you're the one that charges the cavalry, and yeah, getting those that spear support in there.
Yeah, I think we managed to always leave gaps. I don't think we ever got trapped unintentionally.
Yeah, I only when we allowed Gilgalad to trap them because we didn't really
Exactly,
care. But yeah, so it worked out quite well. Alex wasn't originally going to be able to make this game, but I thought it went quite well for you in that Alex is going to be playing Halls of Thranduil, so he's bought probably about a 600 point force of that and is going to be making them. And with this infantry-focused, choppy Morannon force, I think apart from the fact that Halls of Thranduil are much higher fight skill and you have a few less of them, they play sort of similar to a Gothmog and Morannon force in that you get in there, you've got high defense, and you've got a key center character that allows you to chop down your enemies in combat. So, what are you thinking about the Thranduil force off the back of this?
I think what drew me to the Thranduil force is he's got a decent army bonus. I believe anything within 3 inches of Thranduil gets +1 on their wound rolls. And I've also purchased a lot of Palace Guards, and if they're within 3 inches of Thranduil, they get +1 to their fight skill as well. So I think there'll be some quite tough opponents to get through.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how you're gonna play with them, and I think that will help you develop in the game much quicker once you've got your own army. And also, I'm sure you both saw the significant importance of obviously having your banners about. That makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. Getting those rerolls helped Tom quite a bit in killing my 3 men that I did lose.
Yeah, that is absolutely pivotal. When you've got the higher fight skill, you have to have that banner there to really capitalise on it.
But yeah, I'm pleased with how it went. I mean, it's probably my 5th game, and I'm quite pleased how much I've picked it up, considering I haven't actually played any wargaming before.
Yeah.
Never played 40k or anything like that.
Yeah, you've definitely done well. So let's just hand back to Ash for a minute. Ash, any closing comments about what you're gonna like? You're gonna change anything in your list? You know, what's your main takeaway of what you're gonna do differently?
So I think I'm going to maybe get some beefier Rohirrim, so some Royal Guard, just to support Theoden a bit better. So when we're facing those stronger Morannon Orcs or Strength 6 warriors, it gives us
Strength 4
warriors.
Yeah.
It gives us a better outcome than the standard Rohirrim. I don't think I'll change a lot more than what I had. I think I'll just look and think more about my deployment in certain scenarios, and I think, yeah, moving forward, I think the Rohirrim I'm hopefully going to develop them into an army that I can use a lot more effectively than I have other armies in the past, and maybe enjoy the game a bit more, because I might not get a total thrashing and almost get tabled every time I play.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit 40k, a bit like 40k, but more punishing in that if you are out of position and the other player is in position, you can really get punished for it. And like I say, I think there's going to be another learning curve with the cavalry. But yeah, right-hand Royal Guard are really good because you've got that fight skill 4 all the time. So if you're up against Morannons, if you're up against standard Haradim, you're better fight skill all the time. And with the Riders of Theoden, I think I'm correct in saying that they will go up to fight skill 5. That puts you on par with high elves, so Tom's army. That put you on par with Thranduil's elves, unless you're getting the bonus. Can you hand back to Alex for a second? The Thranduil's elves, they get a bonus to their fight skill in certain scenarios?
Yeah, only within 3 inches of Thranduil.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that put you on level pegging, the majority of the time, apart from that elite core around Thranduil. But I think that was a good game. If it had been the other way round and Tom was the primary player and you were the secondary, I would have really worried for mine and Alex's chances, full stop, to be honest, because your cavalry would have been on top of us immediately. Yeah, although, again, if it had rotated round and Alex had been in the middle, in the reverse, we might have done better, because those Morannons are just so hard to shift. All right, then. Do you want to say goodbye, guys, and then we're going to close out?
Yeah, thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Yeah, cheers. Good game, guys.
Hello and welcome back to the present. So since the battle report, which I think went as well as I could have imagined a 2v2 battle report where I only had 2 mics that weren't designed to be passed around the room, could have gone. I think in future, until I've got better equipment, if I wind up getting better equipment, we'll have to see. Probably just stick to 1v1s, and I think it will work a lot better. We'll be able to be more detailed with it. We can spend more time on it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. So since we did that, we have had I've had time to total up the victory points, and yeah, it looks like it was an 8-1 victory to the evil force. So we got 3 victory points for killing the enemy leader. We got 5 victory points for breaking the good force and remaining unbroken, and we got 1 victory point for having a banner left. The good side also had a banner left, so they got that victory point, and both secondary leaders survived, so those victory points were not allocated. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is when you do a battle report, isn't it? Sometimes it's the most exciting game you could ever imagine, and sometimes, unfortunately, one side seizes the advantage, or one side makes some mistakes. But on the plus side, if you are listening to this podcast as a new player that is trying to learn from other new players' mistakes, I think this was the perfect battle report, really, because we had Ash stepping up. Like, he had played a little bit of cavalry in the past, but not many models whatsoever, and to step up to 400 points and have what was it in total, 13 cavalry models in his force, that made a big difference and was a big new learning curve thrown in front of him. And he has been taught a lesson there in a pretty punishing way, but he's learned that lesson. So hopefully yourself out there listening, considering a lot of cavalry in your force, maybe you can learn that lesson this way, and go straight into your first game with this in your back pocket, which is, unfortunately he put his cavalry in an area of really restricted movement, and he put his infantry right out in the open, and if he had reversed those two, it would have been a very different story. It would have been the perfect deployment for him if he had just reversed them. Really, he would have probably, he would have still been in a position where he would have been relying on getting priority, or there not being a heroic move to extract that front line of his cavalry. He would have still been in that position because of the way the scenario is laid out, but he would have been a lot more successful in counter-attacking. He would have been a lot more successful in just getting out of there if that's what he wanted to do, and his infantry would have fared a lot better, because it would have played to their strength in that they were outnumbered, and at least for a few turns they would have been on an even footing. And yeah, how he was deployed, unfortunately, I think the deployment was the big mistake. Then the second mistake was, rather than just cutting his losses and getting out of there and joining up with the elves, and they could have fought as a combined force, he would have lost a lot of his infantry, but his infantry, in the numbers he had, were never going to win in that game. Theoden and his riders were potentially going to win him that game. That's what I would have done anyway. But yeah, I think he sent good money after bad, unfortunately, trying to save the infantry, and it just got worse from there. I know Tom may argue with me when I see him. He didn't seem to think that hanging back with his elves made that much of a difference to the game, and I don't think it made a huge difference to how once the combats were happening. I agree that it didn't make that significant of a difference, but the big difference it did make was in my mentality of what I had to deal with as that central player. I think his thinking was, I will hang back and I will deliver some aid immediately. I'll get those bows out there, I'll start firing, and I'll do something right now to try and help my ally. And it did to a degree. He picked off the odd Harridan here and there, but it wasn't really game changing. I think maybe a little bit under average, or maybe just average in terms of the performance. So I don't think the dice rolls necessarily the problem there. But yeah, the big problem I think it caused is by him not moving up. I think a good player, like in a chess game, like in any strategy game, you have to be thinking what's going to be happening in 2 or 3 turns from now. And by him just hanging back, I was like, well, I've still got 3 turns. And then he started moving up, and I was like, I still have 2 turns. And by also the combination of Ash slightly moving away from him with his cavalry, we really extended that to 3 turns. And the combination of the elves not moving forward and the cavalry moving slightly in the wrong direction, I was just like, let's commit everything. I probably held back no more than about 45 points of my 400 points. I sent everything else into the Rohirrim, and for me on the opposing side, I can't deny that the elves not moving up played an immense part in that. If he had moved up, I would have probably formed a battle line. That would have been a threat I couldn't ignore, and I would still have played for time, but I would have probably committed at least half of my force in terms of being ready for him, to being able to be like, look, you've got to face me rather than going straight into the main battle. I would have committed more forces to delaying him so that we could continue attacking the Rohan. But because that didn't happen, I was able just to pile everything into the Rohan. So yeah, sorry, Tom. I can't lie. That's my true thoughts. But you win together and you lose together, and it certainly was not all your fault. And although Ash did make some big mistakes, they were learning mistakes, and I think that needs to be remembered. Great game for Alex though. Certainly confidence building, because he wasn't under an extreme amount of pressure because it was going well for us. He was really able to focus on the minutiae of the tactics, of making sure that he was getting the traps where he could do them, making sure he wasn't trapping himself, making sure he was supporting. It was a fantastic game for him to learn there. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really learn a lot myself, but it was a good midweek game, and I got to meet up with my friends. So I've got no complaints, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, let us know, and that'll motivate us to do it again. Probably not bigger, but certainly better. Yeah, maybe next time, if people liked it, maybe next time we'll do 650 points, 1-on-1, and really try to be more detailed with it and do it in a bit more of a controlled way. And we can spend a bigger portion of the time we're together focusing on the battle report, rather than, because it was 4 players, it was 800 points either side. We spent the vast majority of it playing, but yeah, it was good. So yeah, if you've got any comments on how we could improve the format in future, that would be appreciated as well. But yeah, I hope you feel as I do, that it went reasonably well. On to the segment I hope you've all been waiting for. I've certainly been waiting to share it with you. I'm going to do sort of a condensed down into, sort of what one segment, one chapter of hobby update, group update, and then Ardacon progress and update, because I think you've heard a lot in the battle report and on the army list. It doesn't need to be so detailed this week. So on the hobby update, Honestly, I've not got as much done as I should have, and I think you might actually see perhaps a 3-week break between this and the next episode, just to give me a little bit more time to get some painting done, because I have spent a reasonable amount of time on the content for this episode. That will also mean that the next episode will come out, or be prepared, will come out about 2 weeks before the Warhammer World Doubles tournament at the end of July, and then obviously I'm going to do a load of stuff for the Warhammer Doubles. I'll probably do a 2-parter, I would imagine, about that, and release them a week apart. Then it's going to be another 2 weeks, and it'll be Ardacon after that. So yeah, I'll probably do a hype podcast in the run up to Ardacon, and then I imagine quite a bit of content from Ardacon itself. Maybe I think you can do live broadcasts. We'll see what we can do, but we're going to do some exciting stuff for that. It'll be fun. It's the big finale of season 1, or possibly the entirety of the podcast. I'm really enjoying it. It's very much going to depend on my schedule of how many tournaments I reckon I can get to after Ardacon in the latter half of the year. I don't really want to just be signing on and boring you all, because I've not got any crux points to pivot the podcast about in terms of building up to and hype. But I'm really enjoying this. I probably won't book up 2 really big tournaments I have to stay away for within 2.5 weeks of each other again. Moment of madness. But yeah, I think, could I be going to a tournament every 6 to 8 weeks? We'll see. I reckon 8 weeks is definitely possible. I could do one every couple of months, especially if I can find some more one days. I think it's when you have to stay away for 2 days, it's a big ask on on your social relationships and just other stuff you have to get done. But I am really enjoying it, so it could certainly continue afterwards. So back to the hobby update. Yeah, just I've had a couple of busy weeks. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. I'm getting a puppy in about a month's time. I'm really excited for that. And just getting the house ready and all that sort of stuff, and my partner's moving in with me as well, so yeah, that's taken up a lot of my time. And then I've managed to get 3 or 4 evenings for painting, and then I've had to spend 2 or 3 playing games and doing this and stuff. So yeah, I just probably need a little bit more time between the next one to make sure I get the painting done. But what I have done has been decent. I've got a Watcher of Kana completely done. Got my first 2 horses completely done. I think we're about halfway there. I am going to have to do some real sort of dedicated painting, but I am speeding up now in terms of it. I've done a lot of the boring prep work and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I think I'm going to be in good shape for the doubles. A little bit worried about preparing my singles army for Ardacon. I'm going to take Mordor though, and I do like normal orcs. I've got a scheme that I really like where I use contrast paints and I can really knock them out quickly. If I do Morannons, they're not the most taxing models in the world. I can get it done. I just need to I need to find some weekend days where I can just do a 10-hour shift on this and really move things forward. But yeah, not great. But at least I got something done since the last time I spoke to you. For the guys, in terms of their hobby progress, leaps and bounds. So I think I mentioned before, Alex had put in a order for his own Thranduil army. There's a massive delay on Thranduil. Games Workshop doesn't seem to have any. Nobody seems to have any, and nobody seems to know when they're coming in stock. So he's waiting for that to come. But he ordered from Element Games. And he very kindly used our affiliate link as well. But yeah, that was delayed. It was delaying the whole order. So he wrote to Element Games and said, can you split the order? And I think they have split the order and sending it in. Well, they did split the order, and they've sent it in 2 parts. They haven't charged him extra postage, so they sent out to him all of his palace guards, his cavalry, and all the paints and glues and stuff he had ordered. So yeah, thumbs up Element Games for your customer service there. You've really done Alex a solid. He came over on Saturday, and I'm going to blame Alex a little bit as to why I haven't made more progress on my army, because I spent pretty much the whole of that Saturday helping, teaching him how to take off the mould lines, all the little tricks I knew, and we got him sped up pretty quickly, and we got 20 of his Palace Guard made in a playable condition, and I sprayed them and showed him how to do Zenithal highlight on half of them so that he can go away and paint them. So yeah, great progress for Alex. Last time when we spoke, he didn't have any of his own models. Now he has to sort of proxy in one model as a Thrangel. Oh, and I did actually convert him a banner which I made out of green stuff, which I was really happy with. I did one of them for Ash as well, who was also over. Best banners I've ever made, much better than any I've ever made for myself. But yeah, so that's great progress for him. He's got now a small 400 point force that he can use in games, and yeah, hopefully we'll see him expand that by the next time I talk to you, and he should have his cavalry up and running with it as well, and maybe Thrangel will have turned up by then. For Ash, he's got, as you saw in the battle report, he's now got some Riders of Rohan that he's made, but what he should be really proud of is he's painted a ton of Morannons, and this is a heck of a breakthrough for Ash, really, because he is a bit of the butt of jokes amongst the group in that he's a very, very slow painter to get things done, and it looks like it won't be too long until he's going to have a fully painted Mordor force if he keeps going at the rate he is. And I know he's been painting some Rohan this week as well. Yeah, so good on you, Ash. Keep it up. It's going to be sick to see you with a painted force for like the first time ever in any game system. Not to drag you there, it's going to be a good achievement, and trust me, mate, when you get there, there's no better feeling than laying it out and you've basically got a painted army to play with. It's best feeling in wargaming, in my opinion. Better than winning. It's great. And Tom has been working on his Rivendell army, and he's sent some photos through today, and he has made some on the point I was saying then, he's been batch painting his infantry, and yeah, they're going to be done in no time. He's really, really motoring through them, but which is impressive in and of itself. But what I wanted to talk about is he's made some like really marvelous water bases, really, really nice, using the Green Stuff World UV resin. He told me, so he's made some really solid bases in of themselves in terms of like using some nice basing materials, some nice variants, also variants in height as well, which I think is what makes an appealing base, is complementary variants in what you choose. It doesn't matter what you choose. I think that's what draws the eye in and makes it good to look at. But yeah, he's done that, and then he's put this UV resin to make it look like it's a flooded area or the edge of a waterway, because of that Rivendell theme of that. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it, but you know the magic power I mean, the Elrond and Arwen knockdown ability based around water, and that's sort of the theme he's gone with. They're really good. Next time I see him, or I have to get him to send me some decent photos, and I'll put them on the Facebook for everyone to see. They're really cool. And while I'm mentioning the Facebook, thank you to everyone that's liked the page. We're still small numbers, but it really has started to grow, and we're starting to get some decent views from there. And as that grows more and more, we'll obviously make more and more effort to put some companion content on there. The Facebook page is the place to be for additional content that complements the podcast. That's where we will put photos. I would have loved to put some photos up from the battle report, but I had too many unpainted miniatures, and I just can't bring myself to do that. And I also put the companion photos on my Instagram account, which is Lord of Hykra. But that's less important to me. Do that if you want to do that. It is on there, but yeah, primarily how we communicate with people is through the Facebook page. So yeah, the guys have had a much better hobby 2 weeks than I have. And yeah, breezing over lessons learned. I'm just going to do it in bullet points because you've heard a lot about my progress and my armies and my thoughts from that. Burly boys, Ardacon guard as I like to call them, absolutely slap when they're winning duels. Yeah, love them. They're doing great. Lances are only good if you win the fight, obvious, but yeah, that's been another lesson. Positioning is my big takeaway in terms of what are your big mistakes. I knew positioning was important, but really doing that battle report and how quickly, like, really capable models like a big horde of Rohirrim warriors and Theoden just got absolutely taken out. If there's one thing I think I'm going to be keeping my mind on in these tournaments is positioning. The tactics and the battle dance, as I call it, is important, but what will stop me losing games in a spectacular manner is really keeping an eye on my positioning. I really do believe, based on my experience so far, that positioning and deployment as part of positioning is the most important element of this game. Like you can have every trick in the book up your sleeve. You can have the best models. You can have the best hero. You can have made the best army list. You can be the best tactician there is in doing the battle dance. But if you get your strategy wrong and you're in the wrong position to deploy it, it doesn't matter. What do you guys think? What do you think is the most important element of this game to being a successful Middle-earth strategy battle game player in terms of winning, not in terms of fun? I think it's a given that we should all turn up and try and have fun and allow our opponents to have fun. That's just my sort of pure, unfiltered thoughts on it right now. Now, moving on to the segment I hope you've all been waiting for, the Ardacon update. So, this story is going to get. I wouldn't go as far as to say I was despondent on the podcast last time up, but I certainly was a little down about it. And I've got lovely people around me, and I've got plenty of great things in my life. So not like that, but I was bummed. I was bummed out about it. And it did get a little bit worse. So it is Thursday right now when I'm recording this segment, and this is probably going to get released on the Friday or the Saturday as reference there. Maybe the Sunday if I'm running particularly late. Last Sunday, so nearly a week ago from when you heard this, I was literally like at breaking point with the plan to go to Ardacon. They announced the accommodation costs, and literally a single room was £90 for a night, and a double room was £100 for a night. And I'm not gonna lie, it stirred the whole thing up for me. I was a little bit angry because I was like, oh, my accommodation costs have doubled all this. Because my plan was to, at that point, what I seemed was feasible was to find a doubles partner somewhere out there. I was chatting to one guy that was looking for a doubles partner, and I was just going to go, but I was going to have to do all the accommodation myself. And yeah, maybe I was still running on a hope and a prayer on that, thinking it was sensible. But long story short, accommodation for the 3 nights was looking expensive, and with getting up there and parking, it was easily looking in the region of £300 plus what I'd spent on the ticket, which was £80, so £380 for one tournament, and that's just not something I could do. That wouldn't be fiscally responsible of me with other stuff I've mentioned I've got going on. I wouldn't be able to spend that much, and I was just sat there thinking, am I letting my hopefulness, my stubbornness, whichever way you want to look at it, am I letting it am I digging my head in the ground here? Am I wanting to save face, and I don't want to have to go on the podcast and be like, oh, I'm pulling out of Ardacon. Why am I doing this? Why is it still being so stubborn? This is just silly money. I can't afford it. And I I was really discussing with those closest to me, because this shows that, you know, the rest of my life is pretty charmed that this was my biggest worry at this point for that weekend, I guess. But yeah, I was really, you know, am I going to have to pull out? And I really thought I was going to. And I started chatting to a couple of people and sort of just saying to them. And I did cobble together a plan of what I was going to do, which was I was going to skip doubles. I was going to go visit my friend who lives on the outskirts of Manchester, who was willing to have me visit for a night. I wouldn't have wanted to impose and asked him, can I stay for longer? Feels like that would have been taking advantage of my friendship. But I did genuinely want to go see him, so that seemed like a good plan. And I was going to go to a travel lodge that was a little bit away from the place. I would have had to travel back and forth. And I thought I could get my costs down to about 90 quid, which, yeah, off the rough maths I had in my mind when going with someone else, I thought maximum the whole thing would cost me about 150. If we stayed at like a cheaper hotel and stuff, and that was kind of what my budget was. So that was my plan, and yeah, I was just gonna have to be like, yeah, it's disappointing. I'm missing out on half the ticket cost, but so be it. I just go for the weekend and Chaos and Arda, and I miss out on the doubles, which would have been something. That was what I was going to go for. You know, take the best of the situation of what I could actually afford. Anyway, I started chatting to some of the guys in the team. You know, the singles event on the Saturday, Sunday, and you can have a team of up to 8. And I've got a Middle-earth In Mercia team filled with a couple of international guys and some fellas that are down from Southern Mercia. Really looking forward to meeting all of them. And yeah, I was chatting to Tom of that, and he said, well, he made an offer to like put me up in a room and stuff and help me afford it that way, which was very, very kind, and I was definitely considering doing. But then he came back to me a few hours later, and he said, look, I've got this friend that was, you know, not sure whether he was going to be able to attend. He might be able to take Chris's ticket off your hands. You two split a room for 2 of the nights, and you both make cheaper arrangements for the 3rd night, and then it'll be affordable for you both. You both get to do it all. And yeah, there was a part of me that was like, oh my, because I'm friendly, but I'm not friendly. You know, I haven't got. I may be talkative on here, but I'm in real life. I'm normally talkative with people that I get to know. I'm not timid. It's not the right word, but I take a while to get going. You know, and yeah, there was a part of me that was like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't go with three blokes you don't know to a tournament. And then there was the part of my mind that was like, no, you really want to do this. Tom seems like a nice bloke. He's made a decent offer to you before to try and help you out. This all seems sincere. Do it. And you know, I have, like, when I was a kid, I did army cadets and things like that, and groups like, and the scouts and groups like that, they try and push you out your comfort zone. And I thought, like, yeah, do it. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. So I have. And yeah, we've been chatting for a few days now. I've been talking with my doubles partner. I won't mention him on this because he hasn't like written to the podcast or anything like that. Maybe if he wants to be involved, I'll talk about him a bit more. But yeah, he seems like a really decent bloke. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time, really. We're going to try and meet up ahead of time, so you know it's not so daunting when I don't want to first meet him and we get in the car and then it's a 2-hour car journey. But yeah, hopefully by the end of Ardacon, you know, I'm going to have 3 new mates, hopefully, so that'd be really awesome. And we've already been talking army lists. He's going to be playing a Mordor list. I'm going to stick with my Harad, which is great that he's been able to accommodate that. And yeah, he's sort of going to be playing Ring Wraith and Black Numenorians and a load of Morannons, really. Forget who his leader was. It was Shagrat with armor and a shield, who is an absolute beat stick. So yeah, maybe we're in the future. Once I've rewritten my Warhammer World Doubles list, which is 400 points to 350 points. Maybe we'll go through the combined list. And yeah, I'm talking with the guys about trying to meet up for a game and stuff. The future's bright, I guess, on this. Just when you think it's all going to fall apart and you're clutching at straws for contingency plans, something, comes out of the ether. And I think in some ways this might even be better. Like, I'm still going to the Warhammer World Doubles with Chris. Me and him are going to have an awesome time at that. Really looking forward to that. And yeah, I'm sure me and Chris would have had a wonderful time at Ardacon, but with us being such close mates and it being such a big thing, we would have no doubt, stayed in the comfort zone and probably stuck together a bit, and we would have chatted to people in our team and stuff, but it would have been more limited. I'm going to be forced to, be thrust amongst the Middle-earth strategy battle game community, and unusual for me, in terms of being placed in a position with lots of people I don't know, but yeah, I'm up for the challenge. So that's it. That's episode 4 for this week. I really hope you've enjoyed it. We've tried some new things. Whenever you try new things, which I guess is kind of the lesson of this podcast overall, you learn and you improve, and that's what we've done this week. But hopefully it's still been enjoyable to you. This is I've really enjoyed making this episode. It's almost felt like a bit like a season 1.1 really. I've taken the lessons of those first 3 episodes in terms of trying to make things flow, trying to limit the amount of editing I have to do while still keeping a decent level of content. I've finally got my head around how to do the alterations to the audio to try and make it sound the way I want it to sound while sort of getting rid of background noise. And then we've sort of had a bit of a morale low last week, and then it's come roaring back this week, which I hope that has come across in this episode, and that hopefully my enthusiasm has caught a bit on you. And I'd love to hear what you're doing with it. What are you painting this week? Who are you playing? What tournaments are you going to be taking part in? And after Ardacon, because we have to start looking to the future now, do any of you have any suggestions of tournaments I should be looking at after August? I think, for the sake of my personal well-being in regards to my girlfriend, that I shouldn't book up another one in August. But from September onwards, where should I be looking at? What do you think should be, if we're going to continue this podcast together, what should be the next big target? I'm looking at going to Lord of the Imps, I think, in October. I'm on the reserve list for that. And I think that probably will be the only other I'm staying away for a weekend that I really want to do for the rest of the year. I need to commit some time to some other things. So yeah, really it needs to be like a 1-dayer in most of England and Wales, or it needs to be a 2-dayer that I could feasibly commute to from Coventry for both days. So yeah, any ideas of some cracking tournaments you're going to? Let me know. I think ideally I'd prefer little and often doing some 1-dayers, and I think especially if we found some 1-dayers sort of September time onwards, some of the other guys from Middle-earth In Mercia Podcast would probably attend. I mean, Tom has certainly expressed an interest, but he is very busy and pressed for time as well, and I think a 1-dayer would definitely appeal more to him. And Ash as well, and Alex, both of them being relatively new to wargaming compared to the past experience me and Tom have, a 1-dayer would definitely be the best introduction for them. But looping back round to the 2 tournaments that I definitely have in the schedule, Are any of you going to Warhammer World Doubles? That would be great to, sort of form a little group of Mercians there, and we could all get lunch together and have a chat about how the day's going. That would be really awesome. And Ardacon as well. One thing I could actually bring up is, so in our team for the singles on Saturday, Sunday, we have 2 spaces left in the Middle-earth In Mercia team. So if you're looking for a team, write to us. I think it would be ideal to take on like a double rather than 2 individuals, but we're not picky. We take everybody that's friendly and wants to have a laugh and will join us at the bar after the games. So yeah, if you're interested in that, let us know. Best way to do that is probably if you like the Middle-earth In Mercia Facebook page. The group is sort of, a subgroup of the page. You can then send me a message on the page, and we will have to check what list you're looking at playing, because we have already, like the 6 of us that are already in it, we already selected lists, nominated what armies we're going to do to make sure we don't have any clashes on the named heroes. So providing that you're not using an army that clashes with any of the existing 6, because that's the commitment I've made to them when we bring in these final 2, because they've made army lists and stuff, then we probably can sort something out. But yeah, just to summarise what I said earlier, I expect the next podcast to probably be at least 3 weeks. It won't be more than 4, because then I'll be running into sort of, the personal hype train I will be building for the Warhammer World Doubles. So it won't be that long, but it will almost certainly be 3 weeks rather than 2 weeks this time. So hopefully when you hear from me, if all things have gone to plan, I would like to have paint on every model that I'll be taking. I don't want to be one of these people, or because I'm highly likely to be one of these people that is painting the day before the tournament. I don't want that to be me. I've still got we've got plenty of time, 5 weeks out at this point. But yeah, I'd rather be done early than be stressing out when we the day before the tournament. So yeah, 3 weeks to the next podcast. I'm hoping with that amount of time, me and Chris can make our schedules work. So we'll get Chris back in. I really want to do an interview with Tom and also one with Alex if he makes a bit more progress on his army for the next one. So yeah, probably interviews and army lists and a little bit more focused on the Warhammer World Doubles. So yeah, just to close out, thank you everybody that is part of the Ardacon community, especially, who everybody has been so friendly while I've been looking for a doubles partner. The guys, they know who they are on the team, who have helped sort out this arrangement for Ardacon. I know it's win-win, but still really made my day. You're almost certainly going to make my hobby year when we actually go to Ardacon. So yeah, I know it worked out for you as well, but yeah, still the sentiment remains. Thanks, guys. And yeah, thanks to the wider community that have been so friendly towards this podcast. I can't believe this thing is still growing. It's awesome and it's really motivating, and I'm having a really good time doing it. And I think, although I'm having to segment off a little bit of my hobby time, and this last 2 weeks hasn't been a good example because I just have been generally stretched for time. I actually think I'm getting more stuff painted because I know, I'm going to report in with this every 2 to 3 weeks. And yeah, it's been really good. I'm really enjoying this experience. I can't, to change from the sign off the other week where I was, hopefully something's going to come up. I'm back to, I can't wait. This is awesome. Yeah, so thank you everyone. I hope you have a great 3 weeks in your personal lives. I hope you have a great 3 weeks in your hobby lives. Get lots of miniatures painted. I hope you're looking forward to this summer's tournaments, and hopefully I'll see many of you there. Cheers everyone. Thank you. Goodbye.